When it's done incorrectly, it really harms people. So here's where I think wholetailing is straight money. You don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole that it becomes a full rehab for you. So keeping this simple is essential. What if wholesaling becomes illegal everywhere like it has in our state? Today, we're going to talk about 2 strategies that we're using to get around this ban and avoid this crackdown so we can keep our real estate business thriving. So why is it becoming popular for wholesaling to be banned? Well, first of all, the government is there to protect the consumer, not the person making money on the consumer. Second, a lot of times real estate agents don't love wholesalers because they are getting in the middle of what could be a transaction that could list on the market. Now, I know that might get some people hot and heavy in the comments. I don't know, but this is a general consensus by agents. And this actually started with a lot of pressure by the National Association of Realtors here in South Carolina years ago. They were trying to get this banned for a very long time. First, let's talk about why wholesaling is now starting to be banned, not only in South Carolina, but there's talks of doing it in other states. Well, in my opinion, it's as simple as a few bad eggs ruined it for everybody else. I genuinely believe wholesaling does have a place for the consumer and is helpful because you're taking somebody who's in a distressed situation, another person who's able to help them with a solution in finding the end buyer without having to deal with listing agreements, property disclosures, and all of the headaches that can come with listing a property. Those wholesalers, in my opinion, have a really good place in the market. However, the problem comes in when somebody's putting a property under contract, they have no intention of buying at that price. They're just hoping that somebody will pay that price in the end and getting the seller hopeful that their agreed upon price is correct. So in my personal opinion, when wholesaling's done right, it is absolutely wonderful for the consumer. When it's done incorrectly, it really harms people. So I can understand why these laws are coming into place. However, when stuff gets shaken up and things get thrown upside down, I personally find this as a great opportunity to get in and excel and propel your business in a direction that you may have not thought of before. All right, so let's get into it. So our first strategy is wholetailing. What is wholetailing? Well, it's as simple as you purchase the property, you do minimal to no repairs on the property, and then you either list it on the MLS or you sell it to an end buyer. The difference between that and wholesaling is with wholesaling, you are getting something under contract and then you're selling that contract to somebody else. You never actually own the property. So here's where I think wholetailing is straight money. You're purchasing the property, so now you have full control over the property. You know that a seller isn't going to back out, that all these things are going to come up because now it's your property. You can do a minimal amount of work. Sometimes with wholetailing, we'll clean up the property if it's got a bunch of trash in it. You can even do a little bit of demo just to have the end buyer come in and see what the property could look like. Also, if your subs and crews are really good at making foundation repairs for a good price, you can add a ton of value here because a difference between a crew who's constantly doing foundation repairs for you, that is going to be much cheaper than somebody who's coming in that maybe only renovates a property or 2 a year and their contractors are going to charge them top dollar for the same amount of work. So you have the ability to keep your crews moving. You can do a couple things that really can add value to the investor who's coming in to buy it. And then you're putting it on the MLS to a larger buyer pool. And this is where it's key because you're never going to be able to build a buyer's list as big as the buyer's list is going to be on the MLS with all of those investors' eyes seeing those properties that you have for sale. Now, it's important to stick to these 3 steps to be successful with wholetailing. First, and this may sound intuitive, but it's finding the right property. You want to make sure that you're finding the right property that this is going to work for. So understanding the bigger buyer pool and what they're looking for. And you can do this just by looking at different comparables, things on the market and how fast they're moving in an extremely distressed state. Number 2 is just knowing what essential repairs to do on the property. So as I had mentioned before, maybe it's small foundation repair, maybe you don't do anything, maybe you clean it out, or maybe just slap a fresh coat of paint on everything. Look at your market, look at your comps, and that will tell you exactly what to do. But you don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole that it becomes a full rehab for you. So keeping this simple is essential. And then the third thing is just pricing it the right way. Lean on your agents for this. Make sure you're looking at your comps. I strongly suggest listing slightly under what you think it should be to get those investors bidding that property up. Because once somebody sees a property at a certain price, they're going to start to have FOMO as other investors are jumping in, and they're going to feel like they're missing out. Tell me I'm wrong here. You're an investor, you know that feeling. It's one of the hardest feelings to calm down and say, look at these numbers, but it's a very natural thing. When you see something getting bid up and you know there are a lot of offers, you feel like you're gonna miss out. And a lot of times investors will overpay for a property because of this. Lean into it. So I'm curious, do you think that wholetailing can work in your local market? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. The second strategy that we're gonna use is installment contracts. With installment contracts, this gives you the option to purchase the property at a later date. In addition to this, you are going to be going on title and you are going to be investing your money into the property by giving monthly payments and also some money down as an option to purchase at a later date. In South Carolina, this is perfectly legal because now you have a vested interest in the property and you'll be able to market it. So what this does is it allows you to get into a property for a lot less money than you would if you actually need to purchase it. Then you take the property and you can market it just as had done before. You could list it on the MLS. You also could just list it to your buyer pool, whatever really works for you. But where I really like this strategy is it gives you the ability to get into a property with a small amount of money down. Now here is the downside of it. If the person that you are purchasing it from doesn't continue to make their payments to the lender, you could end up in a little bit of trouble because the property could go in foreclosure. And if there's not enough equity to pay you out at the end for the money you have invested in it, you could lose that money. Personally, I like to have control over our properties. When I can purchase, I do like that. However, this can also reduce your risk a little bit on the other end. And maybe you'll just lose a small amount of money if something goes south with the deal versus if you purchase it and you find that you can't sell it for what you thought and then you end up losing even more money. So these are just some things to consider when it comes to an installment contract versus wholetailing. Here are 3 quick, simple tips that can help you work through an installment contract. The first one is you need to negotiate the price with the person who's selling the property. That's first and foremost with pretty much any deal, right? The second is how much is that option payment going to be? How much are you going to give to them to say, I want the option to purchase your property? Then you also have to agree on monthly payments. So you and the seller are going to have to agree on a monthly price that you're going to pay. And then you're also going to need to decide on the length of the contract. We personally are going to be using 3 to 4 months and not push it too much longer on these installment contracts, just because we personally like to have the deed to the property if we're going to own it for an extended period of time. The second step is same as always, just conducting your due diligence. Look at the property, make sure that it makes sense for you, that your numbers work, and also what's your exit strategy. So if you are going to do an installment contract and you can't sell it, are you going to be able to get another lender to come in, and can you purchase the deal on the back end if for some reason it doesn't work out to sell it to an end buyer? So just make sure you're doing your due diligence and all of those things line up. And then the third step is really just exercising your right with the option contract. You can list it on the MLS. You can sell it to your buyer pool. But I really believe that this is going to become wildly popular as we progress into this new territory of wholesaling bans in South Carolina, but also most likely across the United States. So it's pretty simple when using an installment contract, but now I'm curious, what do you plan to use in your business? Which strategy do you find more appealing? Wholetailing or installment contracts? Do you plan to use any of these in your business moving forward? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any other thoughts on this, any other ways that you can see around this legally, we'd love to have that conversation. And as always, make sure that you're liking and subscribing to our channel.